I am Shivani. This is the Curly Bookworm. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are going to do the top 3 series. This is part 2 of the top 3 series. If you are new to the top 3 series concept, you will not know this, but basically, you know, when someone asks you that question, what are your top 3 books of all time, and you're like, seriously, I don't even have an answer to that. Yeah, that's me. So my solution to that essentially is to tell people that I have many top 3 books, and some of the top 3 books that I have will feature in my top 3 series videos. This is part 2. I have done part 1, which I'm going to link somewhere here. You must also notice a kind of empty bookshelf at the back there. Yeah, that's because I got a brand new bookshelf. That's correct. And I'm super excited about it, but I cannot show it to you yet because it's not full, and I'm trying this thing with like color coordinating my bookshelf, which everybody is laughing at me for, but let's see how that goes, shall we? Okay, so let's do this then. The first book that I've got for you in this part 2 of the video is The Little Prince. It's none other than The Little Prince. A lot of you will obviously know what The Little Prince is about, but if you don't, and if you never studied it in, school, I actually ended up studying The Little Prince when I was in college in French, which, as you can imagine, was a super interesting experience because this book was originally written in French by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. It's one of my favorite books of all time, you guys. The story in this book is the most naive, the most heart-wrenching, the most innocent sort of story ever, and if you have read it, I would say, would you like to buddy read it again with me, because I want to put it on my reread list as well. But if you haven't read it, please go ahead and read it. It is about a little boy who comes from another planet, and he kind of changes how you will see the world, or in general questions how the world is seen by people who live on Earth. He also takes us through his adventures on different planets, and these are super imaginative and super fun. It's a very small book essentially, and I got this is a collector's edition. I got this at Shakespeare & Co. in France, in Paris, when I was visiting, just because like it's such a pretty book. Who wouldn't want this book? Oh look, it's glinting in the light, you guys, like gold. It's glinting. This is part of the collector's library. I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, so the collector's library does a whole bunch of hardcover stuff for 20th century modern classics, which include like Virginia Woolf and Fitzgerald and things like that. This is the only version that I have, and it's the one that I picked up from, like I said, Shakespeare & Co., which is this beautiful, gorgeous shop in Paris. If you haven't been, you should go. And if you've watched Before Sunset, you would have seen it, because it's like over there, and it's one of my favorite movies ever. And so I ended up going there, and I was just like, oh my god, what is this bookstore? It is amazing. Yeah, so if you're going to Paris anytime soon, not like it's next door or anything, it could be if you're watching me from England, but yeah, if you're going to Paris anytime soon, make sure that you go to this bookstore. It's really cool. And also buy this little sweetie book. The next book on my list is Stephen Fry's The Stars is Tennis Balls. I always have trouble pronouncing the S and apostrophe, like the sis, okay, I'll stop. Anyway, so this book is basically a retelling of The Count of Monte Cristo, but sort of in the modern world. The book opens with a teenager whose name is Ned, who grows up in England in the 80s, and his entire life changes when certain things happen to him that he doesn't expect at all, and he ends up getting into a big mess. And well, if you know the Count of Monte Cristo story, it's pretty much just that, except that it's also set in 2000, and so on and so forth. I'm really trying to not give away stuff, because as it is, a lot of people know what the story of Count of Monte Cristo is. Stephen Fry is one of my favorite authors. His writing is just almost impeccable to me. Like, he's witty, but also the words that he strings together have purpose, have meaning, have a life of its own within that space. So I really enjoyed this book. It's one of my favorite books ever. I suggest that you pick it up. The next book on my list is this one. It's called She's Come Undone by Wally Lamb. This book is set in the 50s, I think, in the late 50s, and the protagonist is a girl whose name is Dolores, whose parents are perpetually fighting, and she's perpetually eating, and she turns out to be a girl who's 250 pounds eventually, and clearly that's a lot, and it's like ridiculously unhealthy, but also ends up affecting her as a person, and it also ends up affecting the kind of life she leads and what she thinks of herself and what she thinks of her own self-image and things like that. So this book is really it's really witty. It's also slightly depressing. So if you're in that space where you don't feel like picking up something depressing, or if you don't want to read something serious, I would say don't pick it up. So this is definitely not a light read, but if you're in the mood for something heavy, for something poignant, for something deep and meaningful, because this is a coming of age story at the end of the day. So if you are in that kind of mood, I would say please pick it up, because it literally is one of my favorites of all time. I picked it up as usual in a second-hand bookstore. There's a second-hand bookstore that I showed you in a previous video of mine in Bangalore. I picked it up over there. I bought a really random book off the shelf, and it turned out to be a really good read. So yay, I got lucky. So if you have a chance to read any of the 3 books that I talked about, if you've already read them, then please leave your comments and your thoughts in the comment boxes below. I trust that you will continue to do the liking and the sharing of this video. Please, as usual, keep commenting down below, because I love having conversations with everybody who's read books. And off late, I've also been getting recommendations from you guys as well, which is really fun. Some of you message me on Facebook or Instagram or wherever you're following me. Some of you leave comments in down here, which is all great. So I really appreciate it. Hit subscribe, hit the bell button, and I will see you soon. Bye guys.